All right, so now it is recording everything. All right, so how do we build our people counter? So I'm going to go through one way of doing that. That does not mean that you need to do exactly this. You can do something like this if you think it's a good idea for your assignment. But essentially, I'm going to walk through how you would make it so if I click on these people, I provide a counter that will track that for the worker and present it in a way that can be submitted to Amazon Mechanical Turk. Okay, so this is building off of what we had before. So just to remind you, we had an interface here that workers could type, tell me a joke, or in response to tell me a joke, they can say something like, what is the best time to go to the dentist? And then you say tooth hurty. And as you recall, we were doing a little bit more clever things than just collecting that text, right? So we were also collecting, if we go into here to inspect the page, we can go and look at how we were collecting the key downs as well, right? So every key that I pressed incremented a counter, right? And so there are ways to not just capture what's explicitly in a form field, but use JavaScript to capture events that then you aggregate in some way and put into a hidden form field as one way to get that information out to Mechanical Turk. And so in the end, though, this all just gets submitted to Mechanical Turk by submitting this form. So it's the normal HTML form, which means that it has, when in the context of Mechanical Turk, we'll have an action associated with it. That action is just a URL. That URL is one that points to Mechanical Turk, and it says, when the user presses submit, send the data that is captured in this form, including the hidden form fields, send that data off to Mechanical Turk. Once you do that, you can then, as the requester, go retrieve that information either using the GUI, and it's a little bit hidden, it turns out. I've forgotten this. It's a little bit hidden if you post the hit with the programmatically with the program. It's a little bit hidden, but I'll show you where it is in the GUI. You can actually find it. It's under Manage Individual Hits, or you can programmatically get access to that as well. All right. So what if we wanted to make it so you could click on this image and count the people? So two things it seems we need to do to make that happen. One is we need to capture clicks on the image, right? Very similar to how we're capturing key down events. That's kind of easy, but I think the thing we wanted to do to give feedback to the worker is to put up some sort of little marker on top of where we clicked so that they remember where they clicked, so they wouldn't click the same person's face twice, for instance. Okay, so let's go through that. All right, so if we go back to our hit, we're going to add a new. Oh, actually, we already have a click handler here, so I'm just going to modify that because I don't even know if we do anything with that. But instead of the document, I'm going to add it just to this image. And so to give myself an easy reference, I'm going to give this image an ID. Let's say the image. Obviously, it could be anything you want there, just a unique identifier. And then if I want to add an event handler that looks for clicks on the image, I will put a little hash, this little hash sign, which means I'm referring to the element by its ID, and then the identifier, the image, and then the click handler. And just to make sure that this is doing what we think, let's console.log here and say, I was clicked. Always good. People probably think that I just put these silly things in when I'm demonstrating things, but no, I always forget how everything works and try to do it very incrementally so that I verify things work as I do them. Okay, so let's reload this page. I'm going to bring the console up. And I click the image. You couldn't see that. Next time I'll try to do like a big power click. But anyway, I clicked the image and it said I was clicked. If I click it again, you see the little counter goes up. I'm clicking. Great. All right, so what's the next step? So we are now clicking the image. So that's one thing we might want to do. What else do we need? Yeah.
Maybe show them how many times they clicked.
Yeah, so why don't we show them how many times they clicked. Okay, so let's put a little place here. Let's see, maybe just right under the image. I'll make a little paragraph and it'll say you've selected, and at the beginning they've selected 0 people, so I say 0 people. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is every time they click to add a new person, we want to change that 0 and add more, right? So let's make a little span so we can refer to this, and we'll say number of people. Let's give it an ID we can refer to. Okay, and so now we have a place to put it, but we need to keep track of how many they actually clicked. I guess there's already this num clicks here, so we could just reuse that variable from before. So when they click, if I just increment this, say number of num clicks plus plus, so increment it by 1. We can still log to the console I was clicked, but the thing we want to really do now is change the value of this, which I can refer to in the same way with its ID. I want to say text and num clicks. So that should set kind of the inner text here, the text in between the span tags, to whatever the value of num clicks is. So if I refresh it, okay, I've selected 0 people. I knew that. Let's see. Yes, I clicked that guy. Yes, I clicked that guy. But now I'm kind of just like clicking everywhere. Kind of cool. Maybe they'll bonus me if I click a lot. All right, so now we've kind of made, this is actually all you need to know now to write that famous game that took the internet by storm a few years ago, Cow Clicker. You remember that? You would just literally click a cow, and I forget the cow did something, but not much. Yeah. Anyway, it was supposed to make fun of some of the games like Farmville that kind of make you come back all the time, but really, people used it and they liked it and got kind of addicted to it. So, Cow Clicker. You've made Cow Clicker, but it's now People Clicker, except for there's no like. Anyway, so Cow Clicker, but for people. So what do we need to do next? What are we missing?
A red dot on whatever they clicked.
A red dot on whatever they clicked. Okay, so cool. So we need to, if we want to put a dot, like if I click this guy right here, boom, what do I need to know? Where that guy is, maybe? I'm gonna see if I can figure out where this guy is. So his face is right there, I can see it, but if I want to get the coordinates for his face, how do I do that? All right, so one cool thing about almost all of these events is even though we weren't using it, if you put a little argument here, this E in this example, that event object will have all kinds of cool information about whatever event was triggered. And one of the things it's going to tell us is the X and Y coordinates of where this is. So if I log E, let's see what we see. Let's see what we see with E. Sounds like I'm reading my kids' bedtime stories. Okay, so wow, they have a lot of stuff. Okay, so client X, I think that's actually it, but let's look through here. Offset X, page X, maybe we want page X. Screen X, oh wow, okay. So there's different kinds of things. Why don't I see what they actually say? Okay, 560, offset. I think that's it within the image, maybe. Page offset. 215, 98. Wow, this is crazy. Okay, so let's see. Let's try putting I think we want page X. I actually don't remember, but let's put something at page X And if that works, then we'll know it's right. Okay. So how are we going to create something to put there? Any ideas what we could put there? Well, there's really two ways you could do it, I think. Two big general ways you could do that. One way is you can create a new DOM element, like a new thing, new element, and make it, add it to the page, and place it at that position. That's one way you could do it. The other way that gives you a little bit more flexibility, is a little more powerful and fancy, is to turn this whole thing into a canvas object, and then you could place the pointers there. I'm going to do the first one because it's a little simpler. And okay, so we don't need that anymore. All right, so every time it's clicked, we're going to create a new DOM element. So let's say new DOM element. This is just a name. You can call that whatever you want. And then if I make it, really doesn't matter what kind of element it is, but we'll make it a div, and we'll give it a class, which will let us style all of these things. So we're probably going to have a lot of these little pointers. We'll give it a class like, what should we call the class? Marker. Okay, so new DOM element. We need to add that to the page somehow. So we can do that with just add it to the body. Append new DOM element. All right, we could have done that all in one line, but all right. So now we have our new DOM element that should be created every time I click, and it'll be added to the body. And let's see if that works. Okay, so click this guy. Eventually, I just keep clicking this guy, and nothing's really happening to this guy, but eventually there's going to be a thing on his face. It's going to be great, but not now. All right, so something happened. That's just our normal console. Where would we have to go back to this to see if anything happened, and it did. So our new element is here. Kind of hard to see, but just that is our new element. And if I click his face again, you know, we can make these over and over again, over and over again. But that's not really particularly interesting yet. Let's see how we can do something more interesting. All right, so first thing I think we want to do is we want to make these little DOM elements that we're adding so we can see them, right? Because right now they're at the end of the body, but they're all just these invisible divs and we can't see them. So why don't we make them so we can see them? All right, so let's add some CSS here so we can see these little elements. What do I call those? Marker, just marker, I think. Marker, oops, maker, marker. Okay, so what should we do to make these? Let's make them, let's give them, let's make them have a border, big red border. People probably get tired of all these big red borders. If you're in the accessibility class, I think there's only like one person that's in the accessibility class, but this is a repeat. From that, big red borders, let's give it a size just so we can actually see it. Height, pixels. All right, let's see if that did anything. Seems like maybe it should have. All right, so we won't see anything yet. I'm gonna click this guy now. All right, so I've added that guy. Oh, look, hey, our little marker. Look at our cute little marker down there, right on that guy's, not on the guy's face, but anyway, close to the guy's, not at all close to the guy's face. Okay, let's make it a little, like, let's change the border radius, which is kind of like the curvature of the thing. I always forget how to do this exactly, but let's say 5 pixels and see what that looks like. Just seems like it would be prettier if it was round. Hey, look at that, it's round. Pretty nice. Okay, now we've got like a little round red circle, right? So look, we're so close. So now we need to position this on top of wherever I clicked, right? And so now we just need to go back and change a couple of things. So first we're going to position say that the type of positioning for this thing, it shouldn't just flow in the normal DOM order, which is just at the end. We're going to tell it to position this absolutely, which just means that we're going to provide a pixel location for this thing. And so we'll start by just saying it'll be 0 pixels from the left and 0 pixels from the top, which will mean if we do that correctly, it's up there now. We moved the dot way up there. It's getting closer, you know, it was way down at the bottom, now it's like there, it's like almost in the same. Anyway, getting really close. So, so now we just need to not position them all the same, but actually get access to the coordinates of this element. So let's say, take my new DOM element, and we're going to assign its CSS left property the value of e.pagex, and I think I'm going to have to say pixels. I think that's right. Okay, let's see if that did anything, or if I get an error. Did it do anything? Oh, look, that is halfway, sort of. Look, it's right above. Okay, so now we just have to go back, and we have to do, we've done X, so we've done kind of the horizontal position, so now we have to go back and do the vertical position, top, page Y plus pixels. It's kind of weird, like this whole like plus pixels. So the reason you have to do that is that this property of the event is just a number, but when you specify the CSS, you need to give a unit, right? And so this is always in pixels, but the CSS expects a unit. So you got to say like not just 200, you have to say 200 pixels. And there's other units you could give. So that's why it's there. And all this means is all it's doing is a string concatenation. So you're just adding, concatenating those things together. All right, let's see if that worked. That was just to build suspense. Okay. All right, I'm gonna click on this guy. All right, ready? Hey, it worked, sort of. Yeah, it actually worked. Okay, it did work. What do you think? What do you think is wrong with it? Why do you think it's not like where I clicked? Origin of the little circle. Yeah, so how do I fix it? This is a small detail, but it's like super important. Well, it's not really, but it's like the size. Yeah, so how do I get the size? This sounds straightforward, but how would I get the size? What is the size of my close. So visually, so the size of the box is 2 by 2, right? Because the width and height here are 2 by 2. But the border also has a 2 pixel width, and the border is on each side. So in effect, the visual size of the thing is 6 pixels. And so I want to take whatever value I got here and subtract half of that. So subtract 3 from there. All right, let's see if, after I claimed I knew what I was doing, let's see if that actually works. Look at that, right on my mouse's pointer. Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, good. Okay, so now we have a way to put little markers on people's faces. That's good. We're also counting, right? So we have this little thing here, counting for people. Counting. Okay. Anyway, lots of fun. So one important principle of good usability is how a user interface deals with errors and how the user interface allows users to undo mistakes that they have made. And so one of the things that we will want to do is make it so that if I actually accidentally double count this person, or triple or quadruple or quintuple or whatever this person, that I can get rid of him, right? Or get rid of it. So now I can't, right? If I do it again. So how should I go about that?
Give them another action. Like what?
Yeah, do you think so? That's a good question, right? Should it be a different action? Should I be able to just click again?
Like a double click.
A double click?
We can add an undo button.
Could just be that if I do something, I can immediately cancel it out, like the last one. Yeah.
You could have like a button on the side that like is remove buttons, and if that's on, then you can click.
How you say it? You could have modes. You could have a mode that you turn on. Yeah.
Or Ctrl Z. So
What's that?
Ctrl Z.
Control Z. Yeah, you could just do Control Z. So what are the implementation implications of some of these different approaches, right? I'm glad no one said, sometimes people say like, oh, well, you could just like lasso all the ones that are like, it's like, that sounds hard. But okay, probably we could do that. That's true. We could probably do that. But what do you think
I think you mentioned it. Like, I feel like the simplest way would just be click to put it on, click to remove it. That way it's easy to, even if you mess up with removing it, you didn't mean to remove it, click again, it's back there.
Yeah.
No double clicking, no switching things out. Seems intuitive, simple. Also easy to implement.
Yeah, that does sound to me to be the easiest to implement. But I mean, some of these others are, you could also right click and it would be pretty much the same implementation, just a different event. Might be hard to discover, I don't know. The modes would actually be pretty easy as well, right? You just check, you'd have a mode button and you would just check in your code if the mode basically in this click event handler, you would just check to see what mode you're in. You have a big if statement, be an easy way to do it. Big if statement, if in adding mode or whatever, then you would do all of what we have here, else do the remove action. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about with the just clicking again to remove is that it's possible once I get up to like these tiny little people, like that guy, that I could want to add another head and accidentally click on the circle instead of that other guy's head. Not sure how important that concern is. Yeah.
I think we should do an undo button.
Do you want to do an undo button? So if we do like Control Z, we could do a Control Z. Yeah? You want to do Control Z? We could do both. Control Z. Okay, so how is a Control Z, like how is an undo action, how do you actually implement that? What do you have to do in your code just in general? Yeah. So you have to you do have to backtrack. So what does that mean you do? Like what would be my next step in implementing this? Yeah.
Probably save the most recent element or the few most recent elements and then have an event handler waiting for a key combination. When that key combination is executed, pop the things from that stack or list or whatever.
Yep. You just have to remember them, right? So that's the big, both the easy explanation and what makes sometimes this difficult to do, right? For this, we could actually remember all of the actions I think that we do. We just push them onto some sort of stack and pop them off as we remove them. For some kinds of interfaces, it's hard, right? And this is why you don't usually have infinite undo in your programs. But all right, so why don't we do both? Why don't we start with which one do we want to start with? Why don't we start with the click to remove, and then we'll try to do just an undo button as well. Sound good? All right, so let's start with click to remove. So what that boils down to is if I click it, we should have some something ready to catch that click and then remove the element and do any other kinds of cleanup that we need to do, right? So let's figure out what that would be. I'm gonna take this out of the main function. We'll say function remove element event. Okay, and so we're going to do some stuff here, but first we need, when we have created this, we'll add a new handler, so new dot click, and then we can just give it this function. So let's just see, so what should happen is after I create one of these little dots, if I click on that dot, then it should call this this function here. So let's see if that happens. And let's log what this is, and I'll explain what this is. But this should be our current context, which should be that node. But let's see if that actually happens. Okay, so let me get my. All right, I'm gonna click on this guy here. I don't know what that is. I'll favorite icon. Okay, so I have a dot. Now, if I click on that dot again, okay, so it logged out this div, which that div is just that little marker. If I mouse over that, you can see it's that little marker, which is pretty handy, really, because that means I can just take this, turn it into jQuery. I can I just type remove? I think that's a thing, right? Can I just remove this? I think I can do that. Let's see. Let's see if it works. Okay, it should be pretty obvious if it works. It's gone. It's gone. Oh, good. We're done, right? Are we done? The counter. We forgot the counter. So look, we've selected 3 people, but there's no one selected. Okay, so now we gotta change the counter. All right, so we have to, instead of, basically we take all of this, stop logging this, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna take all of this stuff we were doing to increment the counter, put it in here, and instead of incrementing the counter, I'm going to decrement the counter. All right, so now if we do this again, if I click this guy, 1, so I'm going to click someone down here so we can see it. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I can always go back and unclick that guy. Okay, cool. All right, so we've kind of gotten that to work, right? So no, not kind of, we've gotten that to work. It's great. All right, so now we want to do the undo, right? All right, so this is where it gets a little tricky. It's a little trickier than we thought because I complicated things. I made it so that you can undo actions in 2 different ways. If we'd only had it so you could basically do a bunch of things and then kind of walk back through those things, it would have been a lot easier. But instead, you can do a bunch of things and then you can kind of remove some of them and then you kind of walk through. But I think it won't be. Here's a question. Do we want to be able to undo undoing, like with the mouse?
So like it goes back to the original point.
Like if I do this to add something and then I take it away and then I hit Control Z, should it add the dot back?
No, I just click again.
Okay. Deal. Got it. All right. So let's go figure out how we would do that. So if that's all we need to do, from here you could kind of see the only thing we really needed to remove one of these elements was a reference to that element, right? And it just so happens that if you click on it, the event handler gets a reference with this special word this to that element. And so that was pretty easy to remove. If we want to keep track of this so we can just use the Control Z, then we just need a separate place to keep track of what we've done so that we have a reference to those things to get rid of them. So I'm going to make array here, which I probably forget how to do, but let's see. So let's see, call this added elements, and we'll make that, I think I can just do this, right? Isn't that a new array in JavaScript? I always forget. So we have just a blank array when we start, and then when we create this new, I guess you can't see where I'm pointing at this screen, so when we create this new element here, we're just going to add that element to our, I guess we can do it, maybe it's cleaner to do it down here. Add to history, I should have called that add history array or something. Anyway, added elements dot, and we're going to use the handy dandy push and pop because we really do want to kind of have a first in, last out queue, right? And so anyway, we want to be able to push a bunch of stuff, and then to get to the last action, we want to kind of walk back that chain, right? So the first thing you did actually should be the last thing that the undo action touches. Okay, so we'll push this new DOM element. Let's see if this we can see if this works. All right, so I added that, but let's see if it's here. So added, how do you? All right, so added elements has one thing in it, and its 0 thing is this div, right? And so if we keep adding things, presumably we will, now there's 3 things in it, right? And so now we just have to implement the keyboard event handler to take one of those things out of that array and get rid of it. So let's do that. All right, so key down. All right, so now we gotta do some trickery. We're also gonna use the event object here, figure out what key is pressed because we only want our action to run if the Z key and the control key are pressed. So let's do. All right, I kind of forget definitely I forget what ASCII value the Z key is, but let's explore this event object, see what we have in here. All right, so if I want to do Control Z, wait, all right, so if I just press Z, that's all I did. So if I press Z, I think we have a key. Does that have key? Oh, it has key Z. That would be useful. Key code 90. All right, so we want key Z. That sounds like a pretty useful thing to have. Let's do, still want that, but if e.key equals Z, and actually let me go back here. I'm going to press it again, but this time I'm going to do Control Z. Control Z. All right, because there's a control. Yeah, so this control key property will let us figure out if the control key is also pressed. So e.key equals Z, e.key equals Z, and control key, and control key because it's a Boolean. If that's pressed, then let's say undo, yo. Okay. My code is really weird. It says all these like yos and things. Okay. Control key is not. Oh, because I didn't. You let me make an error. All right. E.key control key. All right. Here we go. This is going to be great. Okay, so that didn't do anything because I was just an S key. Z key didn't do anything. But Control Z, undo yo right there. Okay, good. So now we just we get our element to remove. We'll just have added elements, pop, opposite of push is pop, push and pop. I think we do this just like we did before. Remove. Yeah? Anyone think that'll work? Conceptually, this should work. It's just, did I get the right kind of words in there? All right, so added that, and I'm gonna hit Control Z. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Except for it still says one person, but that's fine. We can fix that. We can fix that. Okay, so we made an undo. This is great. So one thing I could do if I wanted to maybe be a little bit more, I could say remove element, and I could just take, yeah, maybe take this, put it up in here. So now I'm just calling remove element with this. So that should work, but I gotta change that. All right, so now I'm just also gonna call remove element with the element to remove. So it's basically just making sure that whatever I have here that's updating the state is the same whether I click on an element or I use the undo key. Let's just verify that that actually works. Okay, so if I click, boom, that works. If I click again, erase, click, 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 click. So this should still work, but it's kind of weird. Okay, got rid of that. That's good, and it got down to 0. One tricky thing, and the consequences, one consequence of us not really handling the, not handling everything perfectly is the added elements probably is not, oops, elements is not, what do I have to do to autocomplete that? Oh, okay. It still has 3 things in it. Because when I remove things with the click, they don't actually get removed from that array. We could fix that. I might leave that as an exercise to the reader. Basically, it's just managing, you know, when you click on something, going through and erasing that thing. Yeah.
That's a good question. Doesn't .log remove the element from the array?
Yes. Yes.
But they're still there.
Oh yeah, because we didn't, the other way we removed them was, so when I click like this and then I click again, that doesn't deal with the array, and that's why they're still there.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting really close, right? So really close. What else do we need to do so we made an interface for counting people that's not terrible, probably has some problems, could be better, but what do we need to do to get this up on Mechanical Turk? What haven't we done? Already? So what else do we need to do to make this interface ready to go up on Mechanical Turk? Yeah.
Instead of displaying the number in the text, it has to.
Yeah, so we gotta put a form. We gotta make this into a this number of people. Got to put that into a form field somewhere. So why don't we make a new one of these hidden form fields? Number of people. Number of people. Okay, so number of people, both an ID, which allows us to kind of refer to it on the page, and then also a name, which is going to be the name that shows up later in your data on Mechanical Turk. And when anytime we update, so now it's kind of annoying. Anytime we update number of people, oh, that also is called number of people. Okay, so we can only have one. So we have to do, I don't know, number of people field. form field. Okay, so let's update this. And it's a little different because it's not the text of it, it's the value of it because it's a form field. So, oh, it's not the, oh, it is number of clicks. It is number of clicks, okay. And let's see, so let's copy and paste that. You could imagine having a function that just updates the number of people. That might be cleaner, right? You just update. But anyway, we'll do it this way for now. I think that's the two places where it gets changed. Okay, so now let's count some people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see, did we get, where is that? Nope, not there. In the form. In the form. Number of people, value is 6. And so now when you, if the worker did this and then submitted the form, that would get sent along with the rest of their data. Let's see if it actually handles if I do this. If I'm doing Control Z and I'm unclicking. So it looks like it's capturing kind of what we actually wanted to do, right? So that's good. One thing you could imagine doing if you wanted was you could capture extra data, right? So you could capture something about maybe how the worker got to this. This is completely optional, but it's one way you might make sense of whether or not someone maybe figured out that, hey, all you're doing is looking at these hidden values. So if you want to get a sense of maybe how much work they went into, you could collect other things like, what if so I guess we could actually get rid of, we don't really need the joke box anymore, right? So let's get rid of the joke box. It's sad, but we got some good jokes. Got some good jokes. Okay, so what if we add a new input field kind of inspired by Crowdscape, which is our paper last time. So, oh no, my battery has 4%. Quick. Quick. I did not see that. Come on. Whew. Wow, immediately jumped up to 6%. That makes no sense. Okay. All right, so maybe like a history. Let's do like a little field called history. Call it, make another hidden field, name equals history. And what should we put in here? Well, there's a lot of things you could put in here. And we're not probably going to do like the full Crowdscape view, but if you wanted to get a sense of it, you could say maybe every time somebody clicks, you could add some record of that click into this field so that there's a bunch of stuff there. So like for instance, maybe we want to know not only like the number, but maybe we are more confident if we can take so history, let's get the value of history first in case there's anything in it. Current history, sounds like a class. Okay. And let's add to current history maybe we'll have some kind of e.page x, and then we'll do e.page y. Oops. And then we want to actually save that back into this field, history. Okay, so all this is going to do is every time I click, it's going to record a little record of it. So if I click on this guy here and I go into the form, history now has not just, it doesn't have just that you have the number of people, but we also have now where I clicked. So I clicked, I clicked, and if we wanted to, we could parse this out to get the exact locations of the faces. But maybe as importantly, if we wanted to just get a quick sense of, you know, did the worker really go through and click all these people's faces? We could get that by looking at this. And it's not that many workers or any workers are going to go through and just hack into the hidden number of people field. Some might, but probably not too many. Maybe for an image like this, they might. But now it's become a lot more work to do that, right? Because you have to come up with, you know, even though it's completely plausible, it's about as much work probably to, you know, write something that looks like a valid click history as it is to just go through and actually do the clicking, right? All right, so that's pretty much, at this point, like all we really need to do. And because we have this all set up from before, if we post this up on the onto Mechanical Turk, this mturk.js is going to take our form and it's going to add an action field here. It's going to make it so it's possible to submit it. It's going to gray out actually we don't even have any visible form fields anymore. And so it will add in, I guess, the other hidden input field that you need, which is the assignment ID. But that's all you really need. So let's see what let's just go ahead and do that. We did this before, but let's go ahead and go on to do this with our terminal. So I think I made a class example. All right, so I'll go ahead and add our URL. Oops, add our URL here. You will get some weird errors if you don't change this to HTTPS. So please do that. And again, thinking about how many hits, which is basically how many non-unique people do you want to do this? Number of assignments, how many unique people do you want to do this? Lifetime, so how long will the hit stay around? How much do we want to pay? Wow, do not put $6. I don't know what this was, but well, I don't know, maybe for some of these, but okay, let's do like 20 cents or something. How long will the worker have to do this? This is in seconds, so this is 2.5 hours. Approval delay, how long until it's automatically paid? So let's say count the people in the photograph. You notice I didn't put any instructions on the task, so you would definitely want to put instructions on the task about how to do it. What? I thought I got rid of that. Okay, so now I got to go and blur that out of my video. Okay, description. Count the people by clicking on each face. Okay, and that's really all you have to do to make this work. Somebody asked about qualifications, and so you can add qualifications if you would like. So there's an example of a qualification here. This code, you make a new qualification like group, and then you can add them. There's a number of these set ones. So percent assignments approved requirement is one that's just provided. And you can say things like, I want it to be greater than 97%, which means that they have to have at least a 97% accept rate. Other ones that are pretty common are things like location. So we saw that on the example from the very beginning of class. Things like number of hits completed, right? So you might want workers who have completed at least 1,000 hits or 10,000 hits or whatever it may be. So you can add that in, and you can play with it. I think it's true that you get better results if you have some sort of requirement there. It's not really clear to me the trade-off between like a 97 and a 98. You can't put well, you won't get any response if you put higher than 99. Turns out, because they're all rounded down to 90, unless they've never had a rejected hit, which is basically no one. All right, and so then all this other stuff you can pretty much ignore, but this is where you would do it. And if you want to look at the other ones, a keyword you might want to look up is if you look up this, you should be able to find a reference to some of the others. So, so that was the percent assignment. Well, I guess they also have percent abandoned requirement. So you may want workers who are unlikely to abandon your hit. You may want number of hits approved, locale requirement. So you might want to say this person should be in the United States. A little bit of a trick. It's a little tricky to understand, like, are these people really in the United States? But at one point, I think they were, and that's how they got that. Or there's an adult requirement, right? So people are over 18. So those are some of the standard built-in qualifications, and we won't cover it. But you can also, create your own qualifications. You can do that through either posting tasks that people have to complete successfully to get the qualification. You can also just do it programmatically to say, I want to give this worker a qualification that I've made up. That's the way that if you ever posted a survey and then wanted somebody to do a follow-up survey, that's the way that should be done, right? So you should take all the workers who did the first survey, give them a qualification, and then post a hit about the second one. And if you want people to actually do it, you probably also want to email them, which you can also do. The API is both really clunky and terrible to use, and all the tools are terrible to use, but they're also pretty expressive, right? If you think about like what a universal crowd computing system would be like, you could imagine creating almost any kind of crowd system on top of Mechanical Turk just because the APIs are so general. And so anyway, so we have in this hit we have greater than 97%. I wonder if I'll be qualified to do this. Let's see. Python class example hit. Oh no, what do we do? Oh, access key is not defined. I thought that I made it so it would be global names, not. Oh, I know what I need to do. I thought I had fixed this, but I think I need to go back. I tried to make it so just if I posted this online, like my Mechanical Turk ID and stuff wasn't just like online. And I did that I included this separate file, but I think what I need to do I need to make this like a global or something? Is that a thing? No. All right. If this doesn't work the second time, if I can't quickly find the answer, Python global variable. Yeah, okay, I don't know. I'm just gonna, I'll cut this last, I'll cut some part of this out so that so I don't have to post my, that's not the one I want. I want to do, but I will share, oh shoot, sorry. I have to go back and get this so I can paste it back in. It's going to be amazing once this finally works, promise. Well, no, take that back. It'll be moderately satisfying. Okay. What? Oh, it's still got the import in it. Oh, shoot, okay. All right, so there's our hit. Ran our Python script, which you can download from the webpage, from our webpage. And let's go look at this. Here's our test hit. It's all grayed out. Interestingly, the mturk doesn't know about this part of it, right? So, yeah.
I would like to so like when the worker hits something and makes some input information, like are you able to view like the history of if they have on that?
You can only review whatever the page has saved in one of those input fields. And so because we have put the number of people in the input field, then you'll be able to see it on Mechanical Turk. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put this video online. I think, well, actually I could put the code too. The code, yeah, okay. There's enough to do on top of this. I think I could put the code. I could put the code too. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, so I've accepted the hit. Oh no, I haven't accepted the hit. I signed in, accepted the hit. Oh look, the answer is there are 7 people. So we submitted the hit. It's always good practice to go through your hit and actually submit it, because problems can happen all the way up to that point. If you get to this point where you see that your results have been submitted to Spherical Sun or whoever you are, that's my name, then it at least thinks it works. The final step is, of course, going to the requester side. Requester Sandbox. Sandbox works a little differently, so we'll see if our data is there. It should be. And you go to Manage. Okay, so I also got to sign in again. Just did this, but okay. And what's weird is that if you've ever posted hits from the GUI, so just on Mechanical Turk's page, they just show up here. For whatever reason, if you post them with a script, with the API, they show up over here. Manage hits individually. Clearly very intuitive. Anyway, so hit that. Count the number of people in the photograph. It says we have 1 submission. We can review this submission. Oh, look at that. Number of people, 7 people. We got our little history. And oh, I guess the name of that button was called Submit Joke because I never changed it. And we can, approve or reject. We can, somewhere you can download all the, maybe you have to, somewhere you can download all of the results. Maybe it was the prior page. But yeah, so that's where you get your data, right? So if you've constructed the page so that the form fields contain the information that you want, once the worker submits, then it will get sent to Mechanical Turk and it will be visible on this page, either just from this GUI or I think maybe if I approve it, it'll be I can also just download the results, and it won't be that interesting because there's only like one result, but I can still show you what that looks like. You download the result, you open up this spreadsheet, I don't know where it is, not there, is it not down there? Save, okay, all right. Okay, so Excel is opening, the big finale is this. So we have the hit ID, hit title. This is all the stuff you know. The description, which I guess is called annotation. The assignment ID. So this is unique for every submission. So every time somebody hits that submit button, you get a unique assignment ID. The worker ID. So this is whoever the worker is that completed your hit. Whether it has an approved or rejected or nothing yet status, when it was accepted, when it was submitted, and the various answers for your. I guess they don't give you the names. I thought they gave you the names. Anyway, the various name or answer or various form fields you have. So ours were 7 count of people we submitted, the history, so all the coordinates of where people clicked. And then this is just the submit button, which ends up showing up as an answer because it is a form field, even though it's a button, and so the value of the button shows up. Does that make sense? Kind of? Yeah.
For Monday, do we just have to have the hit working, or do we also have to have all of this data? Like, do we have to have?
So you only have to have all the data by Wednesday. And by Monday, you can go ahead and collect data if you want. If you want to do that. It's just Monday is another time for you to potentially get feedback, ask questions, that sort of thing. Have people signed up successfully for a requester account? The Amazon people told me that as long as you're not like putting more than $2,000 on your account, that you should be able to do it. I assume no one's put more than $2,000 on their account. Okay, good. All right. Well, I will see you Monday. I have office hours tomorrow. If you want to stop by, send me an email if you need something.